It happens in preschooler bedrooms everywhere. The lights go out, the shadows stretch across the walls, and a sudden, paralyzing fear takes over. To the child, there is a monster in the dark. The standard parental reaction is to deploy exhaustion-fueled logic. We open the closet doors, shine a flashlight under the bed, and prove with physical evidence that the room is entirely empty. This rational approach almost always fails. The crying continues, the stalling tactics escalate, and the child remains unconvinced by the empty closet. These nightly episodes are a byproduct of a specific developmental window where the brain's capacity for storytelling begins to outpace its own survival instincts. Between the ages of 3 and 5, a child's cognitive world is defined by complex pretend play, detailed storytelling, and invisible friends. All this activity signals that the prefrontal cortex, the upstairs brain, is expanding its reach. The child is learning to simulate worlds that don't exist. However, this developmental stage contains a temporary flaw. The reality filtering mechanism needed to manage these simulations is lagging years behind the imagination. This chart tracks the divergence of these two cognitive traits. Right around age 3, the capacity for imagination spikes, while the reality filter remains flat. This creates a multi-year collision zone where children struggle to tell a fictional story from physical reality. The preschool mind is effectively a trap. It has the raw power to invent a terrifying predator, but it lacks the neurological tools to dismiss it as a fantasy. To understand the resulting panic, we have to look at the brain's architecture. It is split between the upstairs brain, which handles logic and imagination, and the downstairs brain, which controls primitive survival instincts. In the dark, the upstairs brain generates a fictional scenario. There is a monster lurking under the bed. Simultaneously, the downstairs brain acts as a blind survival alarm, scanning the internal and external environment for any sign of a threat. Because the reality filter is weak, the downstairs system reacts to the upstairs brain's fictional monster as if it were a literal predator in the room. This miscommunication triggers a neurobiological cascade. The brain releases stress hormones like cortisol, flooding the child's system. The physical symptoms of fight or flight follow immediately. The heart rate spikes, breathing becomes shallow, and the child enters a state of genuine panic. This physiological flood effectively cuts off access to the higher brain. The baby gate between the logic centers and the survival centers slams shut, leaving the child stuck in emotional reactivity. The cortisol flooding the system creates a physical state of survival mode, regardless of whether the threat in the shadows is real. This is why logic is ineffective when a child is in the middle of a downstairs brain hijack. You cannot use facts to reason with a brain that has physically lost access to its logic centers. The parent's role is to serve as an external upstairs brain, providing the calm and regulation that the child's own system cannot currently produce. Intervention begins with physical closeness. Establishing a safe home base through touch and comfort helps lower the child's heart rate and de-escalates the physiological panic. Once the body begins to calm, parents can use the name it to tame it strategy. Instead of denying the monster, we validate the emotion by giving the fear a name. This diagram shows the neurological result of that validation. Putting words to a fear moves neural activity out of the emotional centers and back into the linguistic and logical centers of the brain. Repeating this process night after night is a form of neurological exercise. It builds and strengthens permanent neural pathways between the child's top and bottom brain. The exhaustion of soothing a terrified child at midnight serves a biological purpose. Those interactions are the primary tools we use to build a child's long-term neurological architecture and emotional resilience.